Hey, everybody. My name is Tim Smythe, and Dr. Evans, thank you for the invitation to address the students. I am a high school social studies teacher and for about 21 years now, reading specialist and published author. I have a book coming out, I think in June, on using comics in the classroom. My website is teachingwithcomics.com, so feel free to go there anytime you want. I post lots of lesson plans and ideas and things like that. My Instagram and Twitter is at History Comics. If you ever want to connect, if there's anything I can ever do to help you, I've helped students across the world. I actually write different research papers on the efficacy of graphic novels and comics in the classroom and so forth. So anything I can ever do, let me know. So 3 questions to answer, and I apologize, I'm at home. A lot of my good books are actually at school. Some of them are here. But the first question is, what attracted me to comics? Very early age, and I had a rough childhood, some abuse and mental type issues with my mom and things like this. So I had a lot to overcome in my childhood, and I just remember in those moments when I was allowed to be alone in my room, and I don't mind sharing this. I'm very open with my own students because we're all going through something, and I think seeing I don't know, Bruce Wayne's parents being murdered in front of him, and he's able to go out and want to make at least Gotham a better place. To see the X-Men as really these just misfit kids who have had awful upbringings, in a lot of cases, have been outsiders. And so I suffer from depression and a lot of social anxiety, which sounds weird because I love to teach and I like to present. Really around the world. I've done presentations, but it's a whole different thing. Anyway, I digress. But the X-Men have come together and formed their own community. And so when I read that as a kid, it really inspired me that it wasn't just, the wonderful colors and the illustrations, but it was seeing everybody from different backgrounds, being able to come together and still want to make the world a better place, despite the fact that they had every right to just give up, crawl into a hole and just say, screw everybody. But they didn't do that. They chose to go out into the world and make the world a better place. Bruce Banner suffering through his mental anxieties. And, we talk about the rage inside and who really created that monster. And so I had a lot of those same questions as a kid growing up. So I guess I didn't realize that until I was an adult, that that's what those comics did for me. But I understood on some level as a kid what those comics were doing. Question number 2, what part do comics play in my daily and professional life? They're everywhere. They helped my own son. I have 3 kids. My son who has some health issues and things, and I watched him give up on school at a really early age when some closed-minded teacher termed him a reluctant reader. And with all the mental and health issues he has, he's been hospitalized many, many times without going into that. But it was comics that gave him the love to read, the confidence. And now he loves to read everything. He's in 8th grade now. He's on his Reading Olympics team. He has publishers send him books that he then reviews and shares on social media. I mean, it makes me just so proud. And he still suffers through a lot of these things. And he's my own personal superhero, that he's able to overcome these personal issues and, again, still want to make the world a better place. And it's comics that has helped him to build empathy. So anyway, and my daughter too, and just the different heroes and things, but I'll get into that, I guess, in question number 3. In terms of my professional life, I work with the U.S. State Department in an online global comics and education program. So I literally have taught teachers and students around the world, every continent, except for Antarctica, on how to use comics in the classroom. Comics really are universal. So I don't teach a comic books class. I teach a traditional, this year I'm teaching modern U.S. and modern global history. But I integrate comics a lot, and I integrate them as literature and literacy, as artifacts, both of society and of history. In fact, I'm really excited tomorrow. One of my favorite lessons, we are beginning with World War I, and I use Joe Sacco's The War. This is a 24-foot long tapestry comic. It's 12 different panels. I wish I had it here. All my copies are at school. But I'll be sharing them out on social media and what we're doing with that. And so before we get into the content, students will go in the room, and it's the whole back of the room. I'll put one in the back, one in the front, and they go panel to panel, and they tell me what they think is going on. And each student will have a different interpretation, and each student will have different questions, and each student will take something differently away from that comic rather than me telling them. And that's how we get that engagement. As soon as they walk in tomorrow, they're going to see that and all the other World War One comics that I put out. And they're going to be excited. They're going to be engaged. They're going to want to learn more. And then we're going to read World War One poetry. And my students are going to create their own original poems and create their own original comics. And we've been doing these lessons all year. So comics, I would say I probably use comics at least once a week. They come out every Wednesday. So this is going to bleed into number 3, the role of comics in our culture. So yeah, comics come out every Wednesday, and they really do reflect our culture. They are artifacts. They can certainly be studied, just like a letter from George Washington, or in my class when we annotate hip hop songs, when we take a look at J. Cole, when we take a look at songs from Common, and we pick them apart, Public Enemy, as societal artifacts and what has changed, what hasn't changed. So when we take a look at these heroes, I mean, I've got my Captain America is Sam Wilson, and my Thor is Jane Foster. You've got this woman who is a scientist and a doctor and suffering through breast cancer, and yet she goes on to save us all. And so my own children are growing up with heroes that are, a 16-year-old Pakistani American girl from Jersey City in Ms. Marvel, black characters and gay characters, and now finally trans characters, Muslim characters, and I mean the full gamut. And I talk about these in a lot of my presentations, and I talk to my students about this and what it means. We've had a gay Captain America, a Native American Captain America, and not only that, but the authors and creators are changing as well. We're not just seeing the representation in the characters, but now we're finally starting to see the representation change in terms of the people who were creating these stories. And that's just a fantastic thing. I mean, the diversity I had growing up was very little. And the fact that my own children, it's just normal for them, for these superheroes to be they reflect all of us. It's just such an amazing time. And I've had students tell me that, my classroom was the first time that they've seen themselves in a classroom, between the posters and the comics I have out and the things that we talk about. And it leads to some really, really powerful conversations. We use, there's a Champions, one of my favorite superhero teams, the Champions. There's a comic from a couple of years ago where there's a school shooting at Miles Morales' high school. And it gets into the active shooter roles and the drills that we do in our schools and how that's a part of our life. And so I bought 30 copies. This is from Jim Zub. And I brought it in my classroom and we read it. And my students, it really dawned on them that, hey, it's made it into the comics now. Like, this is us. This is who we are. What does that mean? And so we're seeing what we're going through in our life reflected in these comics. It just, I don't want to take up all of Dr. Evans' time here. Like I said, go to my website, or if there's ever anything else I can do to you all or to help you all with this, if this might bring about other questions, my email address is historycomicsguy@gmail.com. And again, my website is teachingwithcomics.com. My social is @historycomics. Or you can find me on TikTok at Teaching with Comics. I'm on there too. Not many, but I'm there as well. So I hope that helped a little bit. Really, the work that Dr. Evans is doing is very inspiring. And I wish these kinds of classes were around when I was in college. Although now I do work with the University of Pennsylvania, and we're moving in that direction as well. So I also do college work as well. And so comics as literacy. And I wrote my senior thesis on that as a reading specialist. It's been a little bit of an uphill battle, but it's getting better and it's getting easier. And students like you will help us to do that. So thanks for listening. Hopefully I didn't drone on for too long. So thanks again, Dr. Evans, and I hope everybody's well.